couple days ago I talked about the Supercapital that was destroyed in combat. Now it turns out the first ever Supercapital was lost in a dormant realm. It was a insurance scam, so it wasn't really combat, but it is still the first ever Supercapital that has been lost. So that kinda does solve the mystery, and I will post the screenshot on screen in this video. Now today I'll be running the Sansha Capital test site or test range, and this is the last one, the last of the new anomalies that have been added for these new ships. And today it will be a bit different because I'll be flying the Nyx and I'll be flying the Hell at the same time. So it is going to be a collaborative effort between the two Supercapitals that I have here. Now the Nyx will be built for DPS and the Hell is already built for DPS, but I'll show the build on the Hell as well. So the Nyx will have one disruptor. In the medium slots I will add the classic modules that I usually do. Since this is a armor tank, I will add all the necessary modules and a blue scanner. Now as for the fighters on the Nyx, I will try to go with more of the Cyclop fighters because they seem to have the highest DPS, and since the current ships, the Sansha ships, are primarily shield tanks, Thermal does some decent damage on shield. I could technically go and add a bit more EM damage, but Thermal should do the job after all. They do a lot of damage, and for some reason all of my fighters are scattered all over the place, which is kinda weird. So let me try to add all of these fighter squads one by one. 3 squads ready, 3 Cyclops squads, 1 Malleus, and I'll add the Tirfig as the last one. Although I could have added 1 Mantis, but I think for this current anomaly the Cyclops should do really well. Now for the rigs, this is where I think I'll go with a build that is between DPS and tank, a bit more tank than on the Hell. Now the Sansha is using lasers, so since I am a armor tank, that is not going to be that difficult to tank. Dual adaptives. I'll also add dual fighter DPS arrays to increase the DPS of the fighters. And here I'll be placing 1 capacity battery, the panic button, and dual armor repairers. So this is going to be the build that this Nyx is going to have for today throughout the anomaly, throughout the test site. Dual armor repairers should get the job done after all. They do thermal and EM, and armor is really good at tanking lasers, so I should be good with those modules. Now for the rigs, I will add dual of these integrations to increase the armor resistance and armor performance. I have only 1 burst aerator that I will be using, and I have to borrow 1 rig from the Eon so that I can complete the integrations on the Nyx. I could actually go with a 2nd burst aerator, but I don't have one currently, so I'll just go and slap a bit more tank, although it already has a lot of tank. And again, this is a armor tank, and for the Sansha anomaly I recommend that you go with a armor tank because it's very easy to tank lasers on armor, especially if you have the yellow hardener. That's going to make the incoming damage really small, so that's also one idea that you can do. Alright, and let's add the 3rd rig. There we go. And now the Nyx is complete. This is the integrations, and 1 burst aerator, 23 million hit points, decent cold stats, and 1 burst aerator. It still has some very good DPS. Alright, let me unlock and let me show you the active stats of this Nyx, and then we can go and I'll also show you the build on the Hell. It is the same Hell that I used a couple days ago, with the same stats and basically same everything, so it should do well. Okay, adaptives are enabled. Let me just refuel the ship. I have enough fuel. Okay, should last for this video. 50 million hit points. Okay, 83, 90, 91 and 86% armor resistance. Let me quickly show the maximum DPS since we are at 79,223.45 DPS. Pretty good. Now the ship has a bonus on the defense disruptors, which do make a big difference on the battlefield. Now this is the Hell 68,000 DPS. This is the same build that I used in one of the last videos. It will be the same ship. It will have higher DPS than the Nyx, but the Nyx DPS will be increased because of the defense disruption burst projector. However, this ship also has the defense burst projector, and I expect that I will be flying through the capital test site, because 2 DPS Supercapitals should have enough DPS for me to quickly go through the anomaly, but we will see what will happen, since I know that all of these anomalies are kind of different, and Sansha doesn't have a Supercapital at the moment. I mean, they have one. It is the Revenant, but it is not in the game yet, so that is one thing to keep in mind. And I would say when they add the faction Supercapitals, you can expect the Revenant to be added in the anomaly, which is going to be quite interesting, to be honest. Okay, now that was the active stat of the Hell. Actually, hold a second. 94,000 DPS, pretty good. And honestly, should be more than enough. I mean, it has more DPS than the Nyx at the moment, so it will be interesting to see how it will act in combat. So, I'll be piloting both ships, as I already mentioned. It will be from the perspective of the Nyx. The main perspective will be from the Nyx, and you can look at the Hell point of view in the left corner. Now let me quickly scan the anomaly, and then we can warp towards the anomaly. I will be fleet warping these 2 ships. Alright, 3 signals. Let me try to get the correct path. Alright, there we go. And this one. And now I reduce. That was a little bit more. Yeah, that was a bit more difficult, I have to admit. Just a little bit more difficult. And there is the capital test range, or test site, both. It's the same thing. Right, fleet warping, and let's see what happens now. The Hell is a bit faster than the Nyx, and I would say that the Hell should warp first, but since the Nyx was already aligned, I expect the Nyx to warp first. But if we were to go on a race, then the Hell would definitely win, because Minmatar ships are fast, and Minmatar ships are rusted. The rust is actually weight reduction, very effective weight reduction. Right, both ships are now in warp. The Nyx did warp first, the Hell quickly following behind. And this is recorded simultaneously, so you get to see both perspectives at the same time. Alright, now I didn't warp to 0 because I was a bit worried that I will collide with the gate, and if I collide with the gate, then you know things get a bit tricky. And I actually did collide with the gate. Both ships bumped, but I did click jump, so as long as I don't float, you can warp, bump the gate and click jump, and even if you go away from the gate, the ship will still go through. That's just how it works, which is kind of weird, but you know, they should definitely make the landing spot a bit further away from the gates, but it is what it is at the moment. Right, both the Nyx and Hell jumped through, and now it's time to have some fun. Let's see how quickly I'll be able to clear this. Alright, let's see. Now the primary target, as usual, will be a Force Auxiliary. Now they are using armor hulls. Look at those fighters running towards us. That's a lot of fighters. Let's have to ignore the fighters for now and focus on the Apostle. The Apostle is the primary. Although I have so much DPS, it doesn't really matter what I make the primary target. With the drone bombs and with the defense burst projectors, I should be doing an insane amount of damage on the ships. However, it is just natural to focus down the Logi first. That's how I learned to play the game. So I'll be focusing down the Logi first, and then I will go and focus down the...
We're under attack. Fleet collecting fire.
The capitals, and I will leave the...
We're under attack.
Smaller ships for the end. Now I actually thought to go and equip the Hell with the light fighters, but I didn't, because I just wanted to see how quickly I can clear the first wave. And since I already figured out that I can get away with using the hay fighters for everything, but I would say having a carrier or supercarrier with light fighters to destroy the fighters is a good idea, because there's just so many fighters and they do some good damage. But with a good tank, with a good build, that's not going to be a big problem, especially if you're a armor tank. Lasers are not going to do much on armor. However, the Hell is a shield tank. Now, funny enough, the Hell has a shield command burst, the Nyx has a armored command burst, so technically both of these ships are supporting each other with the command burst modules. So in the end, it does kinda feel like a good combination. The Nyx has some boosted armor, boosted armor and boosted shield. The Hell also has boosted armor and boosted shields, which is honestly interesting. And is there a difference? Is there a significant difference in the clear time? Well, so far I would say yeah. I am mowing down all of these ships quite quickly now. Now, when I'm shooting the subcapitals, I leave both supercarriers to basically shoot their own target. That way I can clear faster. After all, battleships don't have a lot of hit points, and the battleships do go down quite quickly.
We're being warp scrambled. We're being warp
Now
scrambled.
regarding the Titans, something I was talking about last time, they will have most likely, from what I've seen, they will have separate skills from dreadnoughts. Now, the supercarriers should also have separate skills, but currently, if you have carrier skills, you also have supercarrier skills, basically. So, I mean, there's still a chance that the Titans will require dreadnought skills. They do require the skills for the capital lasers, capital turrets, missile launchers, and stuff like that. But they might have a new skill that is specifically made for Titans, and I can only imagine how long it will take to skill into one. It will take a very long time, and you can also... Can you imagine how expensive these skills are going to be? They're probably going to be like 10 billion per skill.
Enemy ships detected.
So if I want to
Enemy
fly
ships
a
detected.
Titan, I definitely have to do a
We're
lot of
under attack.
skilling. Alright, next wave spawns. Now the most difficult part here is to find the force auxiliaries, because everything is constantly moving, and the force auxiliaries have the same icon as a carrier. They're technically carriers.
Fleet collecting fire.
So the most difficult part is to actually find the force auxiliary on the overview. And of course, if you add a bit of lag to that, and if you add all the fighters running around your ship, that also does get a bit difficult to find the correct target. And if you're multi-boxing, like I am at the moment, yeah, it can get a bit messy, but it's not that bad. It does take some getting used to, but it's not as bad as it looks. So, one force auxiliary dead. Let me try to find the other capitals. It is funny how with the Wyvern I did get to fight with the Caldery Supercapital, but in the previous ones I didn't. Not really sure why that's the case. They should have been spawning, but they didn't. They don't spawn. They have changed how these anomalies work, but I'm not entirely sure on that. Focusing down the carrier, okay. I think it would be hilarious if there was a infinite ISK glitch. Can you imagine just one of these anomalies glitching out and one of the carriers spawning fighters indefinitely, and you just sit there and kill the fighters, and they keep spawning and spawning and they never stop spawning? That would be actually quite hilarious. However, we figured out that that's not the case. A lot of you guys have told me that there's about 15 of the fighters that spawn, and after the 15th fighter they no longer spawn from their mothership. So yeah, that's one interesting thing about that. Which does make sense. The developers did think about that. They definitely thought about the infinite ISK glitch, I can bet. Alright, so let me see. We have a revelation and one carrier, and then only the battleships remain. Now I keep both supercapitals orbiting around the gate. Now one very important difference between the Hell and Nyx is the capacitor usage. Now the Hell is built to be a shield tank, and by default shield boosters use a lot more capacitor than armor repairs, so the Nyx should be a much more capacitor stable ship. But the way how the modules work is also slightly different. So, well, they are not comparable. They have different traits and characteristics. I remember the days when the shield tank was supposedly better than the armor tank, although I would argue that that wasn't the case. Really, even back then I was able to make some really good armor tank ships, and I had some PvP armor tank ships back then, although at that time I was mostly like flying glass PvP ships, glass RB, glass Cinnabon. I mean,
We're
I
under
still do fly
attack.
the glass builds. It's honestly one of the best things that I made in the game.
We're under attack. We're being
My
warp
apologies for the
scrambled.
weird cuts. I keep
We're
getting
being
interrupted
warp
here.
scrambled.
In never mind. Let's just focus on the super capitals here. So this is wave number 3, I believe, or wave number 2. I forgot. Again, I got distracted and I had to look away for a couple minutes. So I have no idea where I was left. In any case, 29 ships are currently on the grid, most of which are the fighters that are rolling around me here. The tank on both ships is holding really well. I have to say the command burst things on these ships is awesome. The command burst effect on these ships is definitely really good, and these things are meant to be used in a fleet, absolutely not a solo ship. If you have one of these
Enemy
things,
ships
do
detected.
not fly it solo. Although it is possible, you can, but I
We're
wouldn't
under attack.
recommend it, especially since I know a bunch of players that are currently selling fleets to drop
Fleet collecting
bunch
fire.
of capitals, bunch of dreadnoughts on a supercarrier. It will happen. It will happen very soon. I'm not really sure when, but very soon we will have the first ever destroyed supercapital in actual combat. I don't really count that supercapital that was destroyed in
Enemy
the dormant
ships
realm.
detected.
That was insurance fraud. Kind of funny though, that's the first ever was destroyed that way. Makes me wonder if the first ever Titan will also be lost in a insurance fraud.
Fleet
And I wonder
collecting
how much
fire.
IP did it
Fleet
cost
collecting fire.
to get the ship back, since I know that the dormant has that IP, I would say cost reduction or something like 90%, I believe, 95-90%, something like that. So you can easily afford to replace a supercapital if it gets destroyed there, but only like 1 or 2 times per week. You can't really do that
Collecting
every day.
fire.
So that's kind of funny. And I believe the first ever Titan will also be lost in a dormant realm by insurance fraud. Now, honestly, when I saw the kill first, because it was cropped, everything
collecting
was
fire.
hidden, I honestly
Fleet
thought that
collecting
it was fake, was a troll, but turns out it wasn't, and not really surprised, since I know that the player who lost the ship does yeet blink ships, and well,
We're being warp scrambled.
and they did yeet a super capital, although without a build,
Fleet
but still,
collecting fire.
it is a dead super capital. Now, this is one of the next waves. I am
Maybe
focusing
scrambled.
down the force auxiliaries first. Force auxiliaries. I mean, this is something that I've learned from EVE Online. You always kill the Logi and the
Fleet
Guardian first.
collecting
After the
fire.
Guardian and the Logi is dead, then you go and proceed to kill everything else. Because these 2 ships are what's going to
Fleet
prevent you from
collecting
killing
fire.
anything else. That's why the logistics and Guardians have the priority when being focused. Now, a lot of you guys ask me if I do miss the big fights. I mean, I used to,
Under attack.
back in Catch 22, I used to participate in big CTA fleets. I was present
Fire.
at couple very big battles, up to 1,000+ players.
We're under attack.
That was a
We're
long
under
time ago,
attack.
and fleet compositions, ships were much different. Now, since we have capitals, supercapitals, that has changed. Now
We're under attack.
the major fleets use these ships. Back then, it was mostly battlecruiser, cruiser, a lot of drone boats, a lot of prophecies, a lot of Vexor navies, a lot of Dominic's battleships, Armageddons and stuff like that. Now dreadnoughts, carriers and supercarriers, as well as the other subcapital support ships are also being used. Doesn't mean that there is no subcapital in these fights. There are a lot of subcapitals and they're still used, but the battlefield has changed a lot. And
Fleet collecting
I always
fire.
liked these big battles in Eve. I always liked to watch them. I always had the scale, like the sense of scale of the battles was just epic, and huge
We're being warp
clashes like that in space are always fun to watch. However, to participate in them,
scrambled.
after participating in a couple of them, I did enjoy them. It was really fun,
We're being warp scrambled.
but it still doesn't feel like it would be the right thing for me, you know. And I did think about
Fleet collecting
joining a
fire.
corp that has these big battles just to participate in the big battles, but I still didn't, and I still didn't decide whether I want to go and participate in these big battles or not. It's, you know, I'm kind of on the verge of should I go and participate, or should I not? I mean, I have an alt and I can easily join another corp with my alt and then participate in these big battles, but I don't know. Should I do something like that? I mean, that's one aspect of the game that I haven't experienced in a very long time. My last big fleet battle was in 2021. It was like almost like 3 years ago from now. That was my last big battle. We had about 450 in the fleet, and we were fighting with another fleet that had about 800 players, something like that. Was pretty fun, and I was one of the only ones to survive. Actually, no, that was a different battle, I believe. Yeah, there was that one battle where we had about 200 players, and we were fighting. We were trying to get a outpost of a hostile alliance, and I was flying my RB back then. I forgot if it was my original RB, but doesn't matter. We were about 200, and the enemy fleet had 300, 400 players. They had vastly superior ships. Those had a lot more in fleet. We were fighting until the very end, and my squad was the last one to get picked off one by one. I still remember when I saw our fleet commander that I was anchored to get focused down. The moment when it happened, I immediately started to burn out, and I was literally the last man standing back then. All of my fleet members, all of my fleet mates have been destroyed. My RB was the last one, and they all started to lock me on, but I was already burning out. None of them could hit me, and I warped out. That's how I survived. The only player that survived in that big fleet was me in the RB. That was fun. I never expected to survive. I knew I was going into certain death, but somehow in the end I did manage to wiggle my way out of that chaos. And there was I remember there was a hurricane quite close to me. He didn't point me. He forgot to do that, but I was already about 24 about more than 24 kilometers away from them. So, and I'm in the RB without stabs. It was pretty fast ship with the auxiliary thrusters, and I was able to burn out. Moments like these, I do miss moments like these, because that was fun. That was legitimately fun, and I think I still have that RB. If it were my original RB, that ship was And I did record that battle. It's one of the older fleet battle videos that I made. It was a total failure. I mean, that was, I think, after, yeah, that was very soon after Catch did collapse, I believe. And I really loved Catch. Catch 22 was something special. Was a very nice place. Had a fantastic position. Surprisingly, was actually pretty close to Syndicate. Was really close to Syndicate. And I had to travel through about 20 nullsec systems with the RB, and I was being hunted as well. So yeah, that was fun. That's one of my stories from the old days. Honestly, Catch was very fun. Still very sad that it collapsed, but it had flaws. The coalition had flaws, honestly. I wish things were different. I wish that things did go a different route, but unfortunately they didn't. And Catch collapsed. Who knows, perhaps Catch will return one day. Perhaps it will return one day, I don't know. But I did really enjoy that coalition. It was honestly a very, very fun one. Before we joined Catch, we attempted to go and move to a system called L-5, I believe. I forgot where it is located, but that was an epic failure. We got set up, and we lost a bunch of haulers. We lost a bunch of ships. A bunch of survived as well, but that was a fail. That was a big fail. I think it was L-5 WC or something like that. Forgot the name of the system. Wasn't that far away from Syndicate, but that move was a fail. And that little coalition that was assembled collapsed like in a day, or was alliance actually. That little alliance collapsed very, very quickly. So after that fail, and then we decided to go to Catch. And I did have my Macarial back then. That was back when Tier 8 was released and faction battleships were really expensive. That Macarial is still alive, as you guys know. I still fly the ship. I mean, that Macarial has been through hell, honestly. That ship is iconic. The only thing that survived from the Catch days and from the old days is that Macarial. That's why I keep the ship safe. Although I say I keep the ship safe, yet I use it for PvP almost every day. So yeah, not really keeping it safe, but it is a very important ship for me. And I actually thought about retiring it and basically buying a different Macarial that I'll be using, and I might actually do that, because it would be such a waste to lose the Macarial. Since that ship is like 3 years old now, it's pretty old. It's a very old boat, and one of the few battleships that are still alive in the game that have visited all regions. That ship's been everywhere.
Fleet collecting fire.
Because I used to participate in the CTA fleets quite often. Somehow I managed to go stealthily. I guess at the time I wasn't really as known as I am now in the game. Now everyone who sees the name knows who I am in the game, basically. But back then it was different. Nowadays I can't really do the things that I used to do, because they know who I am. They know I record. They know I like to blow up ships, which I don't mind. I have some, let's say, some tactics. That's why I fit tank, basically. If I get focused down, well, have fun shooting at a brick tank, because that brick tank is built to live for a very long time, just like the Revelation. Although that hot drop that we had on the Revelation, that was hilarious. Still cannot believe how much did they mess up, and somehow they lost 2 ships. You cannot make that one up. You cannot make that one up.
Fleet collecting fire.
Now my revelation currently is, let's say,
We're under attack.
let's say I'm trying to figure out what I'll do with the ship. Good chance that
Fleet
I might
collecting fire.
retire the revelation. Good chance that I might just go and buy a new capital. Good chance
We're
that I
under attack.
might just wait for Titans. I have no idea what I'll do with it.
We're
But
under
5,578 or something like that, 5,500
We're
plus
under
kills
attack.
later, I believe it is really time for the revelation to chill out a little bit. That ship's
We're under
destroyed
attack.
way too many boats. Not really sure what ship has my best kill track record,
We're
but
under
I believe the
attack.
revelation is definitely the number one now for me. I don't have any other ship with as many kills as the revelation. That thing mowed down everything that it came in its path, and it never died even once. Because that's just how it was
Fleet
built.
collecting fire.
No, I love how I get carried away for 20 minutes, but yeah, just some stories from the game, from the good old days, you know. I'm fairly sure I'll have a lot more stories to share in the future of the game, and of course as time goes on. I mean, every day it is
Fleet collecting fire.
a new day, and every day we do a lot of PvP. I have a lot of exploration stories. I think I'll share those when I fight the Aster. But for now, let's go back to the Supercapitals here. Now, I've been clearing wave after wave. The tank on bow ships holds, the capacitor on bow ships also holds. They use a lot of tracking disruptors, they use neutralizers and Nosferatus. Thankfully, these things have the
Fleet collecting
Nosferatu,
fire.
or Tracy, they have the electronic warfare resistance,
Fleet collecting
75%
fire.
resistance to neutralizers
We're
and
being
Nosferatus, which means that
attacked.
the capital neutralizers and Nosferatus are not going to do as they're not going to have a big impact on the capacitor as they would have
Fleet
on
collecting fire.
some of the other capitals.
Fleet collecting
And
fire.
even with the resistance
under
bonus, you
attack.
can still see that they do in fact
being
impact my
scrambled.
capacitor a little bit, but the Supercarrier cover module does make a fantastic job, does
Fleet
do a
collecting
fantastic job
fire.
at maintaining the capacitor on the ships.
Fleet
Now,
collecting fire.
I talked about this before, but I'll repeat again because it is very important for these ships. The other dreadnoughts, the normal capitals, dreadnoughts, carriers. If you want to get a capacitor stable dreadnought or carrier, you have to use the capacitor battery build. There is just no other way around it, because the capital boosters, the capital armor repairers do in fact use a lot of capacity. You can go with a full-on
We're being warp
tank
scrambled.
build with only 1 or 2 capacitor batteries, but you will not be able to maintain the tank for a very long time. Eventually the repairs will shut down. Now,
We're under
with
attack.
the
Collecting
super
fire.
capitals, they're a bit different, especially with the super carriers for now. They have that carrier cover module, which does repair shield, armor and hull, and it does supply your ship with capacitor. It
We're
supplies the
under
ship with
attack.
capacitor to such an extent that you can easily replace 3 capacitor
We're
batteries
under attack.
with
Under
1
attack.
cover module, and you still get a capacitor stable ship with all modules running.
We're under attack.
So you can sacrifice, you can not sacrifice, but you can
We're under attack.
use a bunch of adapters or even DPS modules instead of the capacitor batteries, and that is basically
We're
how
under
you
attack.
build the super capitals, because they can do stuff like this easily. They don't have
We're under attack.
capacitor problems as much as the other normal capitals do. Now, will the Titans have a very similar
We're
module
under
to that?
attack.
Well, maybe they will have, but my guess is probably not. I feel like
We're under
Titans
attack.
will we'll have to use the normal capacitor battery setup, but who knows? Perhaps they might add some new module for the Titans that has a very similar purpose
We're
as
under
the
attack.
carrier, as the Supercarrier swarm module. We will see how
We're
that will go,
under attack.
but
We're
my
being
expectation is that
scrambled.
Titans will not have any special module attached to them that will supply them with capacitor. But at the same time, we will see. Anything is possible, honestly. The Doomsday will probably be a
We're
special
under
mode
attack.
that you can
We're
click
under
on the ship.
attack.
It will most likely have 2 special modes, which could be interesting. Could be interesting to see how that goes. Or perhaps the Doomsday will be a high slot module or a medium slot module. Again, we will see. But my guess is that the Doomsday will be a special module,
We're under attack.
or either a special module or a special mode that is already attached to the ship when you get it. So that's what I expect, and every Titan will have their own unique Doomsday. I'll be testing out all of them, and I'll be doing Titan versus Titan when the ships are released. So I'll have a field day with those Supercapitals, and after that, well, who knows what other ships we will get. We will see. Still expecting wormholes, still expecting something very similar to wormholes. Anything is possible. It is July after all, and they did say that a new formative gameplay is in the works, so quite curious to know what that new formative gameplay is. So far there is no news about it. I haven't had the time to ask the developers yet. I did say that a couple times by now, that I will go and ask the developers for some intel, just to see what kind of reply I can get, because they do reply when you ask them politely. Of course, that's to be expected. So, we are, I think this is the last waves, I believe. Only 2 battleships left. I actually cleared this really quickly. The DPS output on these monsters is pretty wild. And I have about 58 fighters on me. Now again, you should be shooting fighters if you want, and you should be shooting them. But in this case I didn't, because I am testing out the tank
Fleet
just to see if
in
my
fire.
idea works. So far the idea seems to be working flawlessly. Absolutely no issues with the tank. No issues with the capacitor. Everything is under control. And that was the last ship. Unfortunately, the Supercapital did not spawn, although it should have spawned, but it didn't, unfortunately. So I guess I'll slow boat towards the second room. And hopefully the rift space will not collapse. Well, it didn't collapse so far, and I was more than 30 minutes inside of the site, so I think we are good to go. This might not collapse. I think on the test over here the sites are a little bit bugged and they don't last nearly as long as they last on the live server. Not really sure why that's the case, but it still gives me enough time to test out a lot of things. So I did mention the race earlier. If a Nyx were to race with a Hell, who would have won? Who would win a race between the Nyx and the Hell? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It would be the Hell. The Hell is just much more faster. The lightweight, rusty armor does save on a lot of weight. Weight reduction 101. The armor repairs are still running. Those light fighters, they are shooting at me, but not a big deal. Alright, a little bit later, 15 kilometers away from the gate, the Hell is already within the jumping range, while the Nyx is a little bit behind, but not a big problem. 13 kilometers, those fighters, they really do want me dead, don't they? And they do follow you. Now if you jump through and if you decide to come back, the fighters will not shoot at you, which is a little bit interesting. However, they do stay in the space even after their carrier is destroyed. Okay, 8 kilometers. The Nyx can jump. The Hell can jump. The Nyx is still a bit far away, but very soon it will also be within the jumping range. Hopefully the rift will not collapse. Would be such a waste if the rift just collapses. Since I already came this far, would be a waste if it were to collapse. Okay, 5 kilometers will be time to jump through. Oh, it collapsed. Oh well. I had that feeling that it will collapse. No, the Hell did actually jump
Shield
through. The Hell
damaged.
did go in the second room, while the Nyx was a little bit stuck. In any case, that was a good run. Definitely a significant difference in the clear speed. A significant difference in DPS. So technically, two Supercarriers that are built for DPS with some form of
Docking
tank
request accepted.
can easily run a site like this without a problem, and that is honestly very good to find out. Of course, having a force auxiliary and a fleet at your site is also a good idea, and I actually recommend that if you're doing these types of sites, then definitely bring a big fleet with you. You can stumble upon these sites in low sec, in no sec.
Warp
There are
drive
some
active.
low sec systems where I stumble upon these sites basically every day, and that's a potential for a lot of ISK there. So these were the 4, 5 or 6 new capital sites that have been released alongside the Supercapitals. They are quite interesting, they are quite challenging, and they are at the same time very rewarding. You can get a lot of ISK out of
Docking request accepted.
these sites, and you can get a lot of loot as well. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.